Hi, my name is Margaret Ledford. I am the director for the Engage at GableStage program. Today I'm joined by George Schiavone and Matt Corey, whose project Sight and Sound is our special kickoff of the Artist Grant Engage series. Hi, Matt. Hi, George.
Hey, what's happening?
So, gentlemen, what is your relationship to GableStage?
Well, I'm their photographer, and I've acted in several of their plays. And my relationship with GableStage was Joe Adler.
Same for me. I was exposed to GableStage through, I think the first play I saw there was Of Mice and Men, because my father was Lenny in that. And many years later, I was introduced to Joe through the previous sound designer, Mike Hoffman, and through my father. And for the last 15 or 16 years, I think, with the exception of 2 musicals, I've designed every show at GableStage.
What is your individual backgrounds? Matt, how did you end up in theater?
It was a fluke, total 100% fluke after the Florida Philharmonic went bankrupt. One of the timpanist of the Philharmonic was at the time married to Meredith Lasher, who contacted me to see if I wanted to pull together some music for a women's theater project production. And I did that. And I think by virtue of me getting my name in that program, Joe saw that production, and it was right when he needed a sound designer, and he spoke to Mike Hoffman, he spoke to my dad, and they both recommended me, and he saw my name in that program, and that was kind of how it all got started. But it was a fluke, no doubt about it.
Well, I had an account, an advertising agency. The head of the agency was Murray Gaby, and he was one of the original Seabees in South Pacific. And now that he was in his late 60s, he got a gig, and I went to see him. And of course, after the show, I engaged him in his glory, and he had his makeup on. I told him how good he was and all that. And I suggested take the headshot that I did for him and go to GableStage or send it to GableStage and see if they'll have him for an audition. And a couple of weeks later, he called me. He said, "Guess what? I got an audition at GableStage." I said, "Really? What are they auditioning you for?" He said, "A play called Sideman." And the year previous, I was in New York with my son, and we were just trying to decide which of 3 plays to see, which was Art, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and this one. And so I thought Murray had just finished learning how to play the piano, and he would annoy everybody by playing show tunes any chance he got, and he would sing. But it was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Anyway, I said to myself, "Gee, I could play a little jazz on the piano. I'm more for that than he is, you know." So it just so happens that week, Frank Showolf had tickets to Arms and the Man, and I went with him. He invited me to come along with him and his wife, and I saw Joe there, and we said, "Hi, how you doing?" Blah blah blah. And I asked him if he had the script for Sideman. He said, "Why?" I said, "I'd like to audition for it." And he laughed. He thought I was joking with him, you know. And then at the end of the play, he came over to me and said, "Were you joking?" I said, "No." So he said, "All right, come on in Monday and you will audition." And we went in. I went in on Monday with Murray, and they had sides there. I didn't even know what sides were at the time, you know. And I'm trying to memorize these sides. And finally, I start trembling because I'm thinking, well, it hit me. What am I doing? You know, what am I doing here now? You know, and I started shaking it, and I realized, oh, I could use this. Because I'm auditioning for a junkie trombone player, see? So I thought I could use this. So that's when I knew I was an actor. So I went in, and Joe was trying to schmooze me and say hello. I didn't want anything to do with that. I just wanted to launch right into it. And he said, "So how you doing?" And that was good enough cue. And I launched into the monologue. And I'm in prison, and 2 of my teeth have been knocked out, and I'm talking to my buddy, you know. And at the end of the speech, I'm looking at the floor, and I say, "What am I doing?" And he says, "Whoa, that was great. Whoa." And so I got the part, and that was the beginning of my theater career.
So can you guys tell me a little bit about Sight and Sound?
Well, I saw I saw this a good chunk of the slideshow that George put together right after Joe passed away that had a lot of the show photos and playbills and things like that. And it really, just watching all those pictures, it was kind of hard because it was right after Joe passed,
Yeah.
but reminded me of so many different productions that I had kind of forgotten that I was even involved in. And when I was asked to work on this, a shorter version of that collage, I was really kind of thrilled because the one thing about Joe and I's relationship, he beat me up a lot about levels and sound effects and toilet flushes and things that were really silly. Um, but he never beat me up about the music that I wrote for his productions. He was always so kind, and he responded to me so well, um, musically, that I mean, I fell in love with them after the first show that we worked on together, Brooklyn Boy, and there's some music from that production in Sight and Sound. But I just always will remember how encouraging he was of me, um, musically, and that always, that's what I will always think about. And so I was really proud to work on this with George.
Incidentally, Matt, I want to compliment you on the music you put to the photographs. I thought it was just terrific.
Oh, thank you.
You know, I did do two tribute movies for Joe after he passed. It was a shock to me when Joe passed, and a large part of my life has been torn out. You know, I mean, just I never realized how close I was with Joe. You know, two boys from Brooklyn. You know, and we got along great. We could practically finish each other's sentences sometimes. You know, and I started to gather up all the photos that I had done, and as I was doing it, it kept Joe alive for me. You know, and I kept going. I did I wanted everybody to look at this for Joe. You know, keep him alive as long as we can. You know, and, well, we can't keep him alive, but we can keep his memory alive, and certainly his legacy, which is, I think, splendid. I mean, when I look back at all that Joe did for South Florida here, I'm impressed. I'm very impressed, and I'm so glad to be a small part of it.
Absolutely. What do you want audiences to take away from Sight and Sound when they see it?
The obvious thing is just the sheer volume of work. Um, he was directing almost every show for the first 10 years that I worked at GableStage, and I was marveled at like how he could continue every 2 months with a new production. And there were so few guest directors. I don't know that he took vacations. I don't know that he ever took any time off. He was always in that theater. And when you see Sight and Sound, hopefully you'll be reminded of all of that amazing, work that happened in GableStage, and as a result of his blood, sweat, and tears.
Well, I welcome another opportunity to put Joe's legacy out there. You know, I mean, under the context of Sight and Sound, that's wonderful. I mean, I like the idea of giving Matt some applause for all the work he did for GableStage, which I thought was splendid. You know, and look at all the work he wound up doing as a stepping stone from GableStage. And me also. Several other theaters that called me to do work for them.
What inspires you to do what you do, either George, either photography wise and Matt music wise? What inspires you?
Specifically about music, you have to, if you're composing for theater, you have to be, um, in tune with the words and the script. So I have to be inspired by the writing, and sometimes that's difficult for me to look at paper and hear tone. I'm not always sure. So what inspires me is actually seeing the actors, um, perform, and usually it's in a designer run or a rehearsal or something like that. But until I see the actors kind of breathing life into the words, it's hard for me to get too inspired. So that's always like a turning point for me when I'm working on a show.
What inspires me mostly is inspiration. I just I just love to do creative things. You know, I feel every day I have to create something, and that's part of my, I guess it's part of my show off syndrome. But what inspired me most about shooting the theater was the actors. I had been a photo illustrator uh, in the commercial photography for a long time, and that would mean I would have to get the costumes and the talent together, and the set, and all of the different elements that come together to make a picture come alive. And in the theater, well, with Lyle Baskin's set and the actors, which I have them run lines, and actors are the best models. I mean, once they're into their role, I'm just there to capture it, you know. And of course, if I have the technology correct and I do it well, well, then everything comes out right. But and then when I sit at the computer and I look at the pictures, that's inspiring. That's really inspiring when I see, oh, the nice results that we got.
What are your greatest hopes about returning back to the theater?
Uh, well, you know, I think a lot of companies are taking this opportunity to kind of do a reset and to look inward at their plans and at how they operate, because you're forced to do that now. So I hope when we get back, you know, the theater and every workplace that we return to will be a safer workplace, a kinder workplace, more inclusive, more innovative, all of those things, because we've had all this time to kind of ruminate on how we're going to make things better. You know, and I also hope that a lot of the places that employ us are still in existence. You know, it's a tough time for the arts, and I hope that the artists don't have to turn to survival jobs, and you know that we can kind of go back to flourishing like we were before we shut down.
That just about says it all, Matt. I mean, one thing I do hope is that if when Gable Stage opens again, they continue with Joe's legacy and the way he chose these biting theaters, these biting pieces, pieces that people reacted to, not necessarily favorably at times, but he always got under everybody's skin with the plays. And I'd like to see that kind of legacy uh, continue, you know. Joe
Great.
picked some good plays.
Yes, he
Really good.
did. And thank you guys so much for joining me today. I just want to thank the over 400 GableStage subscribers that kept their subscription money in to allow us to have Engage at GableStage, and especially Matt Corey and George Schiavone with Sight and Sound. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.